Today I'm bringing you a quick rules breakdown of a 2 to 4 player game of My Little Pony Adventures in Equestria from Renegade Game Studios. For a full how to play video, check out the link in the description below.
Vincent, get back here this instant!
Thank you. Oh, I love you too. I couldn't have done it without you. Thank you. Thank you.
My Little Pony Adventures in Equestria is a 1 to 4 player cooperative deck building game where you and your friends take on the roles of your favorite ponies. During your adventure, you'll recruit allies, search for artifacts, and travel to various locations to help resolve troublesome situations, overcome hurdles, and defeat the final challenge. And all you'll need is a little help from your friends and some sugar cubes. Your ultimate goal in My Little Pony is to overcome 3 hurdles and 1 final challenge before it reaches its cloud limit. Because if that happens, you and your friends are going to be some sad little ponies. Before we get into how the game plays, let's take a look at the anatomy of the cards you'll be using to build your deck and what it all means. At the top, you'll see the card's title, and below that, the card's type. There are 5 different card types. Starter, Action, Ally, and Artifact are the cards that you will use to make up your deck. The 5th card type, Situation, does not go in your deck and only exists to ruin your day. Along the left side are the resources a card provides when played. Here you can see that this card provides 3 help, 3 info, and 3 move resources that can be used for many things, not the least of which, buying more cards. Speaking of buying cards, this number and icon represent how much of a single resource is required to buy this card. Kind of like a price tag. The icons below indicate a card's traits. On their own, these traits mean nothing, but certain locations will award you benefits based on the traits of the cards you've played. Some cards will also have keywords like Pet or Crusader printed in bold. These work similar to traits, as they do nothing on their own, but they might trigger other benefits. And lastly, this text window here describes what the card does the moment it's played. Alright, now that you're all up to speed, let's learn how to play My Little Pony Adventures in Equestria. Okay, first thing we need to do is figure out who goes first, and how you do that is completely up to you. Gameplay will then continue clockwise around the table, starting with the first player. At the start of your turn, there are a few things you need to do before you play any cards. Firstly, if there are any open gaps in the adventure row, shift the cards away from the adventure deck in order to close up any gaps, and then refill the row until you're back up to 6 cards. If there are no gaps because no cards were purchased the turn before, place the card furthest from the adventure deck into the adventure deck discard pile. Shift the remaining cards over and fill in the gap. Next, if any locations have task tokens on all non-repeatable tasks, like this one, discard those locations and replace them. Any ponies on a discarded location are returned to the town square for free, and all task tokens are returned to the supply. And lastly, if the top card of the active hurdle stack is face down, flip it face up. During your main phase, you can perform any of these actions in any order you want. That said, let's go over each of these, starting with playing cards. Playing cards from your hand allows you to generate all the resources listed here and trigger the ability on that card. The resources generated by a card can be used to buy additional cards, perform tasks, and activate character abilities. You have until the end of your turn to spend those resources, because after that, they're gone. They don't carry over to the next turn. Although, sugar cubes and clouds work a little differently. If a card displays a sugar cube icon in this area here, collect the matching sugar cube immediately. Sugar cubes do carry over to your next turn, and you can keep them until you spend them. If a cloud icon is printed on the card, then add 1 cloud token to the active hurdle. unless it's full or one isn't available, but we'll talk more about clouds a little later in the video. Now, here's an important distinction to make when it comes to resources. If a card tells you to gain a token, then you gain a token of the indicated type. The help, info, and move resources printed on the left side of your card are temporary. They do not earn you a token, so hands off. But tokens that you do earn from a card's text are kept in your play area until you spend it, just like a sugar cube. The resources your cards generate can be used to buy cards from the adventure row by paying the cost listed here. So, to buy this 3 info cost card, I need to spend 3 info. You can also spend the resource tokens you've collected to cover the cost of the cards you want to buy. The cards you buy from the adventure row are placed face up in your personal discard pile, and will eventually make it into your hand as the game continues. To move your pony to a location, simply pay the cost of the location you want to move to, and place your pony there. Easy peasy. While at a location, players can perform as many of the tasks listed as long as they can afford them. There are 2 types of tasks available to you. Repeatable tasks, as indicated by this green icon, and non-repeatable tasks. When you perform a non-repeatable task, mark it with one of these task tokens. This indicates that this particular task can never be used again for the entirety of the game. Now, although repeatable tasks are repeatable from one turn to the next, they cannot be performed twice on the same turn. During your turn, you can activate the face-up ability of your character card by paying the cost and triggering its effect, as indicated here. The cost always involves flipping over your character card, so in order to use your starting side ability again, you'll need to pay the cost listed on the other side to flip it back over. At the end of each player's turn, each situation in the adventure row will add 1 cloud directly onto the final challenge. To stop a situation from doing the terrible things it does, you'll need to remove it from the adventure row, and to do that, you'll need to pay its resolve cost, as listed here. As stated on the card itself, other players may spend resource tokens to help you cover the cost of resolving the situation. When a situation is resolved, remove it from the adventure row and place it in the adventure row discard pile. Your ultimate goal in the game is to overcome the final challenge. But you can't even attempt the final challenge until you've overcome all 3 hurdles in the active hurdle deck. And another thing you should know is, once you attempt to overcome a hurdle or final challenge, your turn is over. Before you attempt to overcome a hurdle, you're going to want to make sure that as a team, you can cover the sugar cube cost listed here. So in the case of this you need help hurdle, we'll have to pay 2 blue sugar cubes per player. So if this was a 2-player game, we would pay a total of 4 blue sugar cubes. Once you've confirmed that you can cover the cost of the sugar cubes, announce that you're going to make an attempt and discard all cards that you've played this turn. Next, flip over 1 card from the Chaos deck and add its Chaos effect to the cost of defeating the hurdle. The rest of the text can be ignored. Players can use resource tokens or lay down cards from their hand to cover this additional cost. When you defeat a hurdle, collect the reward listed here. Then return all sugar cubes and tokens used to pay for the hurdle, along with any cloud tokens, back to the supply. Any cards used to overcome a hurdle will be discarded once the hurdle is defeated, and you'll have to wait until the end of your turn before you can draw back up to 5. And finally, discard both the hurdle and the chaos card. Now, if you and your team can't cover the cost of the additional chaos card, the hurdle and all its cloud tokens remain in play, and the chaos card is discarded. On the bright side, any sugar cubes you contributed, you get to keep. Overcoming the final challenge works just like overcoming a hurdle, with 2 little differences. The most notable being, the sugar cube cost required to overcome the final challenge must be paid by each player. The only other difference is, instead of flipping over one chaos card to add to the cost, you flip over two. Other than that, attempting a final challenge is just like attempting a hurdle. But remember, win or lose, after you attempt a hurdle or final challenge, you head over to the end phase. Now, as far as clouds on hurdles, they're not really a problem until you reach that cloud limit. But that's not the case with the final challenge. You see, the final challenge has this thing called cloud cover, which triggers a negative effect when you have 3 or more clouds on the final challenge. And if you have 8 or more clouds, you suffer the negative effects of both conditions listed. Once you've done all you're going to do on your turn, you start the end phase. And the first thing you do on your end phase is add a cloud to the active hurdle. If that cloud causes the active hurdle to reach its cloud limit, resolve the setback effect immediately. If the active hurdle is already at its cloud limit, or if there is no hurdles left, place the cloud on the final challenge instead. But if you overcame a hurdle during your turn, then you don't have to add a cloud this turn. Now, check if you have a situation card in the adventure row. If you do, add a token to the final challenge for each situation card in the row. And lastly, discard all the cards in your play area except for those with ongoing effects. You also discard any cards remaining in your hand. Then draw back up to 5 cards. Once you have your new hand of cards, play passes to the next player on your left. If the final challenge reaches its cloud limit, you lose immediately. But if you can pay the cost to overcome it before that happens, you win. Thanks for joining us. If you like this video and you want to see more, subscribe to our channel. It's the best way to keep up to date with everything we do here at Board Game Coffee. But if you want to see more right now, we got plenty of videos to choose from. And if that's not enough, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. I'm Mark Maya, and this is Board Game Coffee. And remember, have fun, keep gaming, be social. See you next week.